welcome to Homestead Reptile, and today on Morph History we're going over hypo. And hypo is a big term with a lot of different geckos in this category. So this girl is what I would call a hypo red. Now, she doesn't have much dark pigment at all, and that's probably why she is as bright as she is, and she has fired down, she's pink. So she is not a true pink, she just fires down pink. Now, hypoism in most reptiles is recessive. And it, like I said, it reduces dark pigment. So an animal that's red is going to be a brighter red. Animal that's white is going to be more visible white. Yellow, the same, more visible. Orange, more visible. It just becomes more visible to your eye when you get rid of that brown and black pigmentation. Hypoism in crested geckos is dominant / incomplete dominant in some cases. So hypoism has been around since the hobby began. The animals that first emerged from wild-caught specimens had some form of hypoism going on, and that would be your buckskin animals. So your animals that had that yellow pigmentation were natural hypos. And over the generations, people have selectively pulled out that darker pigmentation and made the animals brighter and brighter because as a hobby, we want prettier animals. So it was kind of accidental. It's like, well, I want that particular gecko looks slightly prettier than that gecko. I'm just going to select for that gecko because it's slightly prettier. And then you get prettier and prettier and prettier geckos. Now, hypoism was not called hypoism back in 2000, in the olden days. It was called cream on cream. So, cream on cream geckos was the description of animals that had reduced melanin. Alan Rapace, back in 2002, wrote an article. And in this article, he put out the possibility of breeding a uniform cream gecko. Within the next few years, when this article went through, in 2004, AC Reptiles shared examples of a cream on cream, a cream uniformed animal. These geckos were later coined C2, cream on cream, or what they call cream squared. Now, cream on cream is sometimes confused with citrus. Citrus is very different from cream on cream. People also confuse tangerine with cream on cream and citrus, but they are two different morphs. But they can be bred together, and you can get some crazy stuff out of that as well. But the term hypo was not adopted until around 2006. So they didn't use the term hypo to describe these, yellow animals for quite some time. So these animals, like I said, are generally incomplete or generally dominant versus / incomplete dominant. And there's different types of hypoism. So this girl right here, I would say she's likely a red hypo. You can see her in natural daylight. She has that pinkish tones, but you can look on her. Do you see any dark pigmentation on her? Nope. No dark pigmentation fired down. And when she's fired up, she's red with no dark pigmentation. So she is an example of a hypo red. And now this boy right here, this guy is an example, but he is not a true one, of a black base hypo. So a black base hypo is a lavender, and a lot of people misunderstand that to be a lavender, it has to stay fired down, and it has to always stay that, that gray coloration. That's not true. So a lavender doesn't have to stay that dark pigmentation. It can fire up black, and it can fire down lavender. It's just not a very high quality lavender. And this girl right here is an example of a yellow hypo, or what I would call a dirty hypo. She's also a tangerine. So tangerine affects the pigmentation of yellow. So this is an example of an animal that does still have a little bit of dark pigmentation. You can see it on the tail right there. A little bit of dark pigmentation. So she has reduced pigmentation, but she would be a dirty yellow, and that tangerine is what's probably really brightening her up. Now, with tangerine and hypo, you can get different forms. So if it is a white-based yellow hypo with tangerine, it will make the white portions pinker. It would make it a little bit more yellow. So Tangerine is just a color enhancer. You also have phantoms. So my red girl is a phantom. She is a phantom red hypo. So with the phantom gene, phantom naturally wants to be dark, but the hypo gene over time selectively bred fights the phantom and you get reduced pigmentation. And a phantom is just, a patternless animal. The hypo is whatever color is in the hypo. So you can have a red hypo, you can have a yellow hypo, but you kind of get what I'm saying. And then our last one is the cold fusion. So the cold fusion is interesting. So it is a linebred hypo trait. These are all linebred, but this one's very linebred. So they cold fusions are unique in that they are generally black-based animals bred to be really hypo, and to produce a blue. Sometimes they can have a reddish hue, but they're like blue to purple. They're really interesting. They're very beautiful if you see them in person. And then this guy is an example of a hypo. So this is a dirty hypo. So he comes from a yellow pairing and a red pairing, and this is a dirty hypo. He is technically a hypo, even though he doesn't look it, but that's what he is, and he's just a very dirty hypo. So this is an example of a dirty hypo. He has reduced pigmentation, dark pigmentation. He actually doesn't have any dark pigmentation. It's just the red and the yellow fighting each other. But hypoism is just reduction in dark pigmentation, and there's many forms of hypoism. I hope this was a fun video, and like I said, all this information comes from Foundation Genetics from Little Monsters. I will be leaving it in the links, and I'll be putting more information in this video as well. Like and subscribe.